Ang B-monster! Ang B-monster! Asang pulbos! Asang pulbos! Agay!
So good day everyone! So we are the reporters for week 6 in 7 unit learning outcomes. By the way, I am gorgeous Algebra Therapin Pena, and should I need to discuss all of these things, as a matter of fact, it is very simple and basic. You know why? Because it's very simple to end your life year. Just think about it yourself. Okay, so much for that. Let's start.
At the end of the unit, you're expected to parse sentences using theories of syntax, structural diagramming, analyze sentences, and draw a tree using the structural rules introduced. These most essential terms relevant to the study of principles of teaching and to demonstrate unit learning outcomes will be defined that you can refer to whenever you encounter these terms as we go through the study of curriculum. Number 1. Parse. Analyze a string or text into logical syntactic components, typically in order to test conformability to a logical grammar. The term parse or parsing comes from the Latin word pars, meaning part. The term has slightly different meanings in different branches of linguistics and computer science. In contemporary linguistics, parsing usually refers to the computer-aided syntactic analysis of language. The term is also used in psycholinguistics when describing language comprehension. In linguistics, to parse means to break down a sentence into its component parts so that the meaning of the sentence can be understood. Sometimes, parsing is done with the help of tools such as sentence diagrams, visual representations of syntactical constructions. When parsing a sentence, the reader takes notes of the sentence elements in their parts of speech, whether a word is a noun, verb, adjective, etc. The reader also notices other elements such as verb tense, like the present tense, past tense, future tense, and etc. Once the sentence is broken down, the reader can use their analysis to interpret the meaning of the sentence. Second, sentence diagramming is visually arranging the components of sentence structures in different parts of speech in order to map out the best way to construct your phrasing. Diagramming uses straight lines and slanted lines to help you separate, analyze, and organize the function of your words in a way that delivers the clearest picture. The purpose of diagramming sentence is to ensure your syntax is clear and easy to understand. Introduction. Syntax. Syntax is a study of the rules governing the way words are combined to form sentences in a language. Syntax came from a Greek word syntaxis, literally means a setting out together or arrangements. Syntax means the word order and depends on lexical categories or the parts of speech. You probably learned that there are 8 main parts of speech in grammar school, right? Linguistics takes a different approach to these categories and separates words into morphological and syntactic groups. Linguistics analyze words according to their affixes and the words that follow or precede them. Hence, syntacticians describe how words combine into phrases and clauses and how these combine to form sentences. The main point or main part of constituents, trees, and rules will be discussed by the next reporter. Thank you.
What's up, humans? So, I am Potato Streamer, not just an ordinary streamer, but an educational streamer. So, we have one friend that wants us to learn more about the constituency, trees, and rules. So, without further ado, let's try and present this presentation. So, you guys better listen and watch carefully. Let's hit it up.
Good day everyone, my name is Kayla Isabel Siacaso, your reporter for today. So I will discuss about square brackets and tree structure, constituents, and bracket diagrams. So we have two different ways to represent this bigger unit. One of them is to put square brackets around units, which is the example is shown to you in the graph. The other is represent the units with a group of lines called a tree structure. So these bigger units are called constituents. So in this video, we're going to formally introduce constituents. So what is a constituent? A constituent is a group of words that function together as a unit. In the module, constituent is the most important and basic notion in syntactic theory. Constituents don't float out in space. Instead, they are embedded one inside another to form larger and larger constituents. Before we start to know about constituents, we need to know what is the starting point of constituent. So, what is a sentence? We know that syntax is a study of sentence, and we know that sentences are made of words. There is a structure to the sentence. Structure in the sense that there is order, but there is also a hierarchy. There is a similar structure as sentence level in the sense that sentence is not just a random sequence of words. Actually, words sometimes before becoming part of the sentence. They are organized into a smaller units, and then it's only those units that became part of the sentence. So you see, there is this hierarchy that first is a word. When we are thinking at a word level and we know that there is some structure to the word itself, but the words became part of the sentence. But before becoming part of the sentence, they may become part of a unit. And that unit will be part of the sentence. So those units are important in themselves in the sense that they are also something that can studied in syntax as part of syntax, and those units have a name. They are called constituents. So these constituents come together and they make up the sentence. We know that every language has a dictionary that lists all the words, but there is no dictionary that lists all the sentences. Words constitute a finite set, but sentences are infinite. So you can apply a finite set of syntactic rules to a finite set of words and create an infinite number of sentences. Again, going back to the constituents, if you start at word level and you say the words are the building blocks of sentences, then you have the sentence level. You can think of constituents as an intermediary level between word level and sentence level. To put in other words, you can say sentences have a constituent structure. So here in this sentence, somebody who saw everyone in the organization says that John interviewed Bob. So somebody who saw everyone in the organization is a unit. And it's also a constituent. How do you know it's a constituent? For one, you know that it has an independent unit. So you know that you can take this out of the sentence, it still works. But there are more objective ways of figuring out what constituents are, which we will cover in later. If I take how out of this complex sentence is semantically independent, and it makes sense because it is a constituent. You can also say that John interviewed Bob. That's another sentence within this bigger sentence. So John interviewed Bob is again another constituent. But if I only take that everyone in the organization is also a constituent, but if I take the organization says that, that is not a constituent. Or if I take out the words in the, they are not constituent. They don't have an independent unit, so it even sounds odd to a speaker of the language why you would take out those words. So I give you examples of things, words that together are constituents in the sentence and words that are not constituents. The constituents may have hierarchical structure within the sentence. This means that some constituents, together with each other, may form a bigger constituent first before becoming part of the sentence. So here I have an example of syntactic tree. We have a sentence, the man ate his broccoli, and we group up together words based on whether they are a constituent or not. So for instance, we have a noun phrase, the man, which is grouped together, and then we have a predicate, a verb phrase, ate his broccoli, which is grouped together. Inside that predicate, a verb phrase, we also have his broccoli, functioning as a unit or a constituent. So we will see a nice bracketed version of the tree a while ago. So this has the same information as the tree, but it is just written in a linear order with the brackets and subscripts. Generally, we draw trees to make them easier processing, but this is the idea of a constituent. And if you look at a tree structure, you can identify the constituents in a tree by just picking up a node and seeing what comes with it. So, if we pick up this NP or the noun phrase, then we have this determiner and this noun dangling below it. So that is a constituent. If we pick up VP, then we will have the verb, the determiner, and a noun all pick up. So that is a constituent. If we pick up the TP or the sentence constituent, then we will pick up all the words so that the whole sentence is a constituent. That also means that each individual word, the man, is its own constituent. As we further know about the trees and its rules, it will be explained by the next reporter. Thank you.
To create negative sentences using do, does, and did. Take a look at this structure. Kapag ang sentence mo ay nasa simple present tense, sundan mo lang yung form na to. Subject plus do not or does.
Good day everyone, this is from Group 1 Week 3 reporting in ELT122. This is a topic from Rules and Trees from May Angel Pelotas Balabat and class from ELT122. So, table of content of this reporting is clauses, rules and tree structure, and also a summary. So, first, let's have a definition of clauses. Clauses is a group of words, a subject-verb combination, and it has a complete meaning by itself. We can also consider simple sentence as a clause, and we have example here below. He plays cricket regularly. This is an example of a simple sentence, and it has a subject and also a verb. So we can say that this is an example of clause also. So clauses has two types, which are independent and dependent. The independent doesn't need any other clauses for its existence. So for example is we have you may sit. So you may sit is an example of independent independent clause. It has a subject and also a verb. While the dependent sentence, it has a subject verb but doesn't have complete thought. It depends on independent clause to complete its thought. So we have example here of an dependent clause. So we have wherever you like. So it has a subject and also a verb, but it is not a complete thought. So to make this sentence more complete and to make it sense, we can add independent clause here to complete its thought. So you may sit wherever you like. It has a subject verb combination, and it also gives us a complete thought. And now that we are already have knowledge about clauses, what is clause, we can now proceed now to the main topic, which is the trees diagram for clauses and also the rules of it. It consists of structure of sentences, like sentence that has subject, a noun phrase, and a verb phrase. First example, we have the rule TP, which stands for tense phrase. So TP and noun phrase and verb phrase. So we should follow the rule of verb phrase first which is the VP, verb phrase, adverb phrase, and verb, and then noun phrase, and prepositional phrase, and more prepositional phrase. So we have the clause here, the sentence, Bill frequently got his bucket from the store for $1. So we have the tree here, the diagram, the tense phrase into noun phrase, or NP is our noun is Bill, and then we have verb phrase as our adverb phrase, adverb frequently, and the verb got, and NP noun phrase have a determiner his, and the noun is bucket, and the prepositional phrase has a preposition from, and then the noun phrase determiner the, and the noun is store. Prepositional phrase has a P for, and the noun phrase is determiner and then the noun is our noun is $. So in complete sentence, this is Bill frequently got his buckets from the store for $1. So next row we have TP consists from noun phrase T, which means T is an auxiliary verb, and VP is a verb phrase. So the rule is TP, noun phrase, T as an auxiliary verb, and then verb phrase as VP. So the sentence is Cedric might crush the book, or the clause phrase here is Cedric might crush the book. So TP, our diagram is TP, tense phrase to noun phrase Cedric, which is our subject or noun, and the T is the auxiliary verb as might, and the verb phrase is verb crush, and then the noun phrase is prepositional the, and then the noun is the boat. So in sentence, Cedric might crush the boat. Next is we have this rule CP, which is complementizer phrase and complementizer then tense phrase. So we have two clauses here. So complementizer is used when clauses are embedded to each other by adding complementizer like this, that, if, or but. We can combine those two clauses by the use of complementizer that. So we use that. The rule here is CP, which means complementizer phrase, and then the complementizer, then the tense phrase. So the sentence might go, she said that he decked the janitor. Before it is, Sean said, the tense phrase that has a noun and a verb, and then he decked the janitor, noun and then verb, and then noun phrase, the janitor. So to make it as a complementizer's phrase, we had Sean said that he decked the janitor. We use that to combine those two clauses. So our tree diagram looks like TP, our tense phrase is NP, noun Sean, and then the VP verb phrase is verb said, and then the CP or complementizer is that. Our complementizer is that, and then the tense phrase is noun phrase, noun he, verb phrase, verb decked, and then noun phrase to determiner the, and then the noun is the janitor. So the sentence goes, Sean said that he decked the janitor. Next rule is TP, the tense phrase, and the NPCP, and then the T, the auxiliary verb, and the verb phrase. NPCP is we allowed either NPCP or CP to use. So the clauses here is TP, tense phrase, which is that he decked the janitor with chef. So the complementizer's phrase is dot. He decked the janitor, the dot. And then we have verb as worried and noun as Jeff. So TP, tense phrase, CP, the complementizer phrase is complementizer dot. And then the tense phrase is noun phrase, noun he, and then the verb phrase, verb decked, and then the noun phrase, determiner the, and then the noun janitor. We have the verb phrase, verb worried, and then the noun as our Jeff, noun Jeff. So the sentence goes that he decked the janitor, worried Jeff. Next is we have this Naomi as noun phrase, Erin as our subject, and CP as complementizer if T tense phrase donate her Kung Pao chicken yesterday over the phone. So the rule is VP verb phrase, Naomi asked, and adverb phrase, verb, and then noun phrase, then NP/CP, adverb phrase, more and more, and then free phrase plus, and then adverb phrase plus. So we have TP as noun phrase, noun Naomi, and then the verb phrase V, verb as, and then the noun phrase, noun Erin, and the CP. Here adjective phrase is adjective yesterday, and then the propositional phrase or PP is the phrase over, and the propositional over, and then the noun phrase is the determiner the, and then the noun is phone, and then this complementizer is our C, complementizer if, and then the tense phrase is noun phrase, noun done, and then the verb phrase, verb ate, and then the noun phrase, determiner her, and then the adjective phrase, adjective Kung Pao, and then the noun chicken. So this sentence goes, Naomi asked Erin if Dan ate her Kung Pao chicken yesterday over the phone. Next rule is we have the last one. Rule is noun phrase to D or the determiner, and then the adjective phrase plus noun, and then propositional phrase plus, and then complementizer phrase. So the noun phrase is the fact about Bill, and then the complementizer dot, he likes ice cream, and the brothers Natasha. So TP is noun phrase, determiner the, and then the noun is fact, and then the propositional phrase about, and then the noun phrase, noun Bill, and then the complementizer phrase, and the complementizer dot, we use dot, and then TP, the tense phrase is noun phrase, noun he, and then verb phrase, verb likes, and then noun phrase, and noun is ice cream. The verb phrase, brothers, verb, and then the noun phrase, noun Natasha. So this means the fact about Bill that he likes ice cream bothers Natasha. So the fact about Bill that he likes ice cream bothers Natasha. So next is the summary of the rules and trees is, in this phrase structure, rules needed to generate trees that interpret English sentences. All of these rules, the rules that the reporters and me had talked about earlier, is important to interpret English sentences. So in this example sentence, we can see all the rules shown earlier. So we have here the example. So the sentence is, The big man from NY or New York has often said that he gave peanuts to elephants. So the tense phrase is noun phrase. We have the determiner the, and then the adjective phrase, adjective big, and then the noun subject is man, and then the prepositional phrase is from, and then the noun phrase noun is ny, and then the t, our auxiliary verb is has, and then the verb is adjective phrase, adverb phrase, adverb often, and then the verb is said, and then the CP or the complementizer phrase and complementizer dot, and then the tense phrase noun he, and then the verb phrase v, verb gave, and then the verb phrase noun peanuts, and the prepositional phrase propositional to, and then the noun phrase noun elephants. So the sentence goes, the big man from NY has often said that he gave peanuts to elephants. So that would be all for this topic. So thank you for listening.
So let's start our discussion of rules and trees. Rules and trees. Now we have the tools necessary to develop a simple theory of sentence structure. We have a notion of constituent, which is a group of words that functions as a unit. And we have labels, or a parts of speech that we can use to describe the parts of those units. So let's put the two of these together and try to develop a description of a possible English sentence. In generative grammar, generalizations about structure are represented by rules. These rules are said to generate the tree. So if we draw a tree a particular way, we need a rule to generate that tree. The rules we're going to consider in this chapter are called phrases structure rules, or the PSRs, because they generate the phrase structure tree of the sentence. First, we have to look very carefully nouns and how to identify them and its different types. So noun phrases consists of one or more words that are grammatically connected with a noun at its head. So for you to understand more about noun phrases, let me show different examples. The very old shoe. In this first noun phrase, shoe is the head word, and the other word pointing to the head word is the very old. It gives us information about the head word. Which shoe? The shoe that we had talked about earlier, the shoe that I'm pointing to, the shoe. So what type of shoe? Well, a very old shoe. So shoe is the head of the phrase and shoe is a noun. Just a side note here, very is not directly pointing to the shoe but rather to old, which is pointing to shoe. So it's still part of the whole noun phrase. Next, number 2 is 20 hats. 20 is telling us how many hats there are. So they are grammatically related and hats is a noun. Number 3, mobile phone. What type of phone? Mobile is itself a noun, so that means a noun phrase can have two nouns.
where one noun is modifying the other. Next, my thick textbook is a noun phrase very similar in the first noun phrase I have given a while ago, which is the very old shoe. It has a determiner my, an adjective thick, and then the head noun is textbook, and they're all pointing to it. So in number 1, that is the determiner, old is the adjective, and very is describing old, or as comes from modifying old, the noun itself, shoe. So number 5, a book of magic. This is a fascinating example because the modification comes after the head noun instead of before, as shown in the other examples. So we have 2 nouns here, book and magic. And even though magic is a noun and it's the end of the phrase like all these other head nouns, it's actually not the head noun because magic is modifying book and the book is not modifying magic. What kind of magic is it? A book magic? No. What kind of book is it? Well, it's a book of magic. So therefore, we can recognize that the book is the head noun and magic is not. Now, we know that magic is not the head noun because it follows a preposition. So we can conclude from that if the noun is following a preposition of or other preposition, it is acting as the modifier. Another example, the man on the moon. In the situation, the moon is following on and a jar of coffee. So coffee is following the preposition of. And these all have similar constructs. So you have seen in the definition of a noun phrase that says one or more nouns, this means that one noun by itself is a noun phrase that consists of single noun. Linguist presents the information in trees. Now I am going to show you what a noun phrase might look like in a tree, and we are going to use the example number 1, the very old shoe. So at the top of this part of the tree, we have the noun phrase. That's what NP stands for. And then that noun phrase is divided into 3, divided into the determiner, which is the. It has an adjective phrase and then it has the noun. The noun is shoe. Now, the adjective phrase can be further divided into the adjective itself, which is old, and then that which is modifying the adjective or the adverb that modifies the adjective, which is very. So the whole tree looks like that. That's what the linguists do with all kinds of sentences and phrases. They break it down into trees. Next, we have adjective phrases. We've seen that a noun phrase is a group of words with a noun at its head. Now, the adjective phrase shares a similar definition, but this time with an adjective at its head. An adjective phrase can include adjectives, adverbs, or they are called modifiers because they're modifying the adjective and conjunctions, and these all work together grammatically pointing to the adjective, and the adjective phrase describes the noun. So this means that a single adjective can also be an adjective phrase. So let's take a look at some adjective phrases together. First, we have the old heart-shaped black and white box was the pride of her collection. Our adjective phrase in this sentence is old heart-shaped black and white. So that's our adjective phrase. Adjective phrase AP for adjective phrase. Now, and in here is a conjunction, but it's joining together black and white, so it's still part of the adjective phrase. It's pulling them together, those two adjectives, black and white. So black is an adjective and white is an adjective also, and the conjunction and is pulling them together. Next, number 2 is the days are becoming increasingly longer. Now, in this situation, increasingly longer is our adjective phrase. So that's AP for adjective phrase. Longer is a gradable, shows that long is gradable. It's the comparative form of long, and increasingly, and the word increasingly here is modifying longer. So longer is an adjective in its comparative form, and increasingly is an adverb modifying the adjective, and they're both part of the adjective phrase, all pointing to longer. Number 3 is she saw 3 sleek gold sports cars. So 3 sleek gold, that would be our adjective phrase. You'll notice that there's number 3, which is an adjective as well. Number 4, give me 2 very good reasons. Why not? So the adjective phrase here is 2 very good. And of course, the 2 very good is adjective phrase that is all describing the word reasons. So once again, we have our numerical 2. Very is the word very is the adverb or modifier, which is actually modifying the word good. It's not very reason, it's very good reasons. So that's all part of the adjective phrase. Number 5 is a little girl is walking down the street. Little is our adjective phrase here, and this adjective phrase has only one adjective in it, and that one adjective is little, describing the girl. Now, we might take a little bit of time here to look at the order that the adjectives are written in. So as English speakers, we just say our adjectives in a certain way without thinking about what order we say them in. So but if we said gold 3 sleek sports cars or heart-shaped white and black watch, it really sounds a little bit weird. We feel a bit confused by it, and that's because we do actually have a set order form adjectives, and this is the proper order. So I put them down the side in the order I am talking about. So we have the quantity or number, like 2 or 3, the quality or opinion, good, size, either small, big, age, old, shape, square, color, red, proper adjective, Australian, purpose or qualifier, like a musical. I have some example here. The 6 little round red tennis balls, and then tennis balls, which is the noun, and the end in tennis is a noun. Is a noun and not an adjective, so it's a noun modifier, so it's not going part of this adjective phrase. Next, we have the adverb phrase. Adverb phrase is a type of sentence or group of words that has the same ultimate meaning as an adverb. Therefore, adverbial phrases are often used as replacements for adverbs themselves. So, a prepositional phrase used as an adverb in the sentence. So, we are going to start by looking for prepositional phrase in the sentence, and we will decide what word in the sentence. Now, I have 2 examples here. First, my brother and I found several wrapped presents under the tree on Christmas morning. First, we start by looking for prepositional phrases in the sentence. First is the phrase under the tree, and another one is the phrase on Christmas morning. Now that we already found the prepositional phrases in the sentence, we are going to start looking at what they are actually doing. So what is the function of phrase in the sentence? The phrase under the tree. If we look at that a little more closely, under the tree, telling where we found the presents, and because it's telling where, that makes as an adverb phrase in the sentence. The second prepositional phrase is on Christmas morning. On Christmas morning tells when we found that, and again, because it's telling when, which is an adverb question, that too is going to be an adverb phrase in the sentence. You get that? Number 2, during the winter. My family often rents a cabin for a week. We are looking now for a prepositional phrase in the sentence, so we can see at the beginning of the sentence and for a week, or the phrase for a week here at the end of the sentence. When we start looking at the role in the sentence, what is the function of a prepositional phrase? So the phrase during the winter is telling when we rent, and because it's telling when, it's also an adverb question. The phrase for a week is also telling when, or it's essentially telling how long. Sometimes you can look at that for an adverb to how long or duration of time we rented for a week. So by this, anytime you see a prepositional phrase that appears at the beginning of the sentence and it's set off there by a comma, it's always going to be an adverb phrase. That's kind of an absolute rule. The reason of comma is there. That's just a grammatical structure kind of to show you that it's set off from the subject, but good rule of that is if you have a prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence, it's almost always an adverb. So might be helpful for you. Thank you.
Oh, it's my turn now. Okay, I've been waiting here for a decade, I guess. By the way, my name is Shekinah Marie, and I am the sister of Inigo. Yeah, you heard it right. I am also the daughter of that trophy wife trend on TikTok. I don't know what's with mommy. She always posts on TikTok, but I guess that's just her. So let's just start my report, and I am going to report some of the rules from rule of trees, which is the prepositional phrase and the verb phrases.
So I am going to start my report about prepositional phrase with a question. What is prepositional phrase? Let me use the simplest way by telling you the sentence pattern. Prepositional phrase is a group of words with preposition plus object plus modifier. First, before we proceed, let us review what is preposition. Preposition are words that show a connection or relationship between the words in a sentence. What is objective or object? Object is noun or pronoun that comes after the preposition. What is modifier? Modifier are words or a word that describe or modify the object. For example of a prepositional phrase, the first example is at school. The second example is before the game. And the third one is from my mom. So let us see. The prepositional phrase at school has two words only. Our preposition there is at. Our object is school. We don't need to use modifier to modify the word school. And our second sentence or example, before the game. The word before is our preposition, the is our modifier, and game is our object. The third one, from my mom. From is our preposition, my is our modifier or our determiner, and mom is our noun in the sentence. So I will give you some examples of prepositions. Those are about, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, before, and behind. So those are just some example of preposition. Prepositional phrases tells details, time, phrase, direction, and other information in sentence. Below are several examples of prepositional. Let's start with a prepositional phrase when it comes to time. The first example, before the game. As you can see, our preposition there is before. Determiner, the, and our noun is game. And our place is across the street. Our preposition is across. Determiner, the. Noun is street. And also our direction. The sentence is to my sister. The preposition there is to. Determiner, my. Noun, sister. And there's a lot of examples of prepositional phrases such as despite the problem, with my family. So those are just some of the examples. So I will give you an example. Our example is to my sister. The prepositional phrase rule appears to be our preposition is to. Our noun phrase is my sister. Noun phrase consists determiner and a noun. My is our determiner. Sister is our noun. When we say my sister, that is our noun phrase. In the rule we've given, the noun phrase in the prepositional phrase is obligatory. There may actually be some evidence for treating the noun phrase in prepositional phrase as optional. There is class of traditionally called particles. As an exercise, you might try to think about the kinds of phenomena that would distinguish particles from preposition without noun phrase. Next, we have the category headed by the verb. The verb phrase. Minimally, a verb phrase consists of a single verb. This is the case of intersentives, verb plus noun phrase. Our example here is Ignacio left. Our verb here is the word left. And of course, always remember that verbs may be modified by the adverbs, which are of course optional. For example, Ignacio left quickly. Our verb phrase there is left quickly. Our verb is left. Our adverb is quickly. Interestingly, many of these adverbs can appear on either side of the verb, and you can have as many adverbs as you like. For example, Ignacio deliberately always left quiet early. Our verb phrase there is deliberately always left quietly early. Our adverbs here are deliberately, always, quietly, and early. And our verb is left. There is a subcategory of verbs that can take a noun phrase object. These noun phrases appear immediately after verb and before any adverb phrases. For example, Bill kissed his mother-in-law quietly. Our verb phrase there is kissed his mother-in-law quietly. Our verb is kissed. Our noun phrase is his mother. Determiner his, noun mother-in-law. And our adverb phrase is quietly, which is an adverb. It is also possible to have two noun phrases in a sentence. Both noun phrases must come between the verb and any adverb phrases. For example, I spared the student any embarrassment yesterday. The student and any embarrassment, those are our noun phrases. Yesterday is our adverb phrase and spared is our verb. So let's go with the tree. Our verb phrase is spare the student any embarrassment yesterday. Our verb there is spare. Our noun phrases are the student and any embarrassment. The first noun phrase consists determiner and noun. Determiner is the word the, noun is the word student. In our second noun phrase, it is consist with determiner and noun, of course. The determiner is any, noun is embarrassment. And our adverb phrase, which is an adverb, is yesterday. And always remember, you are allowed to have a maximum of only 2 argument noun phrases. Verbs can be modified by prepositional phrases as well. These prepositional phrases can be arguments as in the transitive verbs of the type or they can be. Simple modifiers prepositional phrases like for a dollar. Those prepositional phrases can appear either after an adverb or before it. For example, Bill frequently got his buckets from the store for a dollar. Our verb phrase there is frequently got his buckets from the store for a dollar. Our adverbs there are, or our adverb phrase there is frequently. Verb is got. Noun phrase is his buckets. Prepositional phrases from the store and for a dollar. Our preposition from the first prepositional phrase is from. Determiner the, noun store. Our preposition for the second prepositional phrase is for. Determiner a, and noun is dollar.
You now have tools you need to start drawing trees. You have the rules and you have the part of speech. I suspect that you will find drawing trees much more difficult than we expect. It takes a lot of practice to know which rules to apply and apply them consistently and accurately to a sentence. You won't be able to draw trees easily until you literally do dozens of them.
In fact, drawing syntactic trees is a learned skill that needs a lot of practice, just like learning to play the piano. There are actually 2 ways to go about drawing a tree. You can start at the bottom and work your way up to the tipi, or you can start with the tipi and work your way down. Which technique you use depends upon your individual style. For most people who are just starting out, starting at the bottom of the tree with the words works best. When you become more practiced and experienced, you may find starting at the top quicker. At the same time, there are 3 techniques that we can use on how to draw a tree, which are the bottom-up trees, the top-down method, and the bracketed diagram. But now, I will give step-by-step instructions of bottom-up trees technique. So here we go. When we say bottom-up trees, it is a method for tree drawing often works best for beginners. There are some hopefully helpful steps to go through when drawing trees. So the first step, write out the sentence and identify the parts of speech. So we have the very small boy kissed the platypus. And now, identify the parts of speech. The, it is a determiner. Very, it is adverb. Small, adjective. Boy, noun. Kiss, verb. The, determiner. And the platypus, noun. Second steps is to identify what modifies what. Remember the modification relations. If the word modifies something, then it is contained in the same constituent as that thing. So very modifies small. The modifies boy. The platypus modifies kiss. Very small modifies boy. The modifies platypus. In steps 3, start linking together items that modify one another. It often helps to start at the right edge. Always start with the adjacent words. Like I will say adjacent words, it is means to close to or near something. If the modifier is modifying a noun, then The rule you must apply is the NP rule or noun phrase rule. Similarly, if the word that is being modified is an adjective, then you must apply the adjective phrase rule. In the fourth steps, make sure you apply the rule exactly as it's written. For example, the adjective phrase rule reads adjective phrase, adverb phrase, adjective. This means that the adverb must have an adverb phrase on top of it before it can be combined with the adjective. Fifth steps. Keep applying the rules until you have attached all the modifiers to the modified constituents. Apply one rule at a time. Work from right to left, from the end of the sentence to the beginning. Try doing the rules in the following order. A. Adjective phrase and adverb phrase. B. Noun phrase and preposition phrase. C. Verb phrase. D. TP, and E. If your sentence has more than one clause in it, starts with the most embedded clause.
To illustrate, we have the very small boy. As we go back to the step 4, the adverb must have an adverb phrase on top of it before it can combine with the adjective. And after that, we can able to identify the noun phrase, which is the boy. On the other side, we have kiss the platypus. We already have the noun phrase. The only thing that we do is to put verb phrase on top of noun phrase. So the sixth step, when you bold up the subject noun phrase and the verb phrase, apply the TP and if appropriate, the CP rule.
7 steps. This is the most important step of all. Now, go back and make sure that your tree is fully generated by the rules. Check each level in the tree and make sure your rules will generate it. If they don't, apply the rule correctly and fix the structure.
8th step. Some important considerations. A. Make sure that everything is attached to the tree. B. Make sure that every category has only one line immediately on top of it. It can have more than one under it, but only one immediately on top of it. C. Don't cross lines. D. Make sure all branches in the tree have parts of speech level. And lastly, avoid triangles. Essentially, skill at drawing tree comes only with practice. Use the suggestions that I'm carving to you if you find them helpful. Look carefully at them and use them as a starting point. And don't forget that always check your trees against the rules that generate them.
The top-down method of drawing trees. It shows the breakdown of a system to its lowest manageable levels. They are used in structured programming to arrange program modules into a tree. Each module is represented by a box which contains the module's name. The tree structure visualizes the relationship between modules. Number 1. This method starts out the same way as the other. Write the sentence and identify the part of speech. First step. The very small boy kissed the platypus. Second step. The very small boy kissed the platypus. Which the is the determiner, very is the adverb, small is the adjective, boy is a noun, kiss is a verb, the is the determiner, and the platypus is the noun. Number 2. Next, draw the TP mode at the top of the tree with the subject NP and VP underneath. Number 3. Using the NP rule, flesh out the subject NP, you will have to look ahead here. If there is a P, you will probably need a PP. Similarly, if there is an adjective, you will need at least one adjective PP, maybe more. Remember, the principle of modification, elements that modify one another are part of the same constituent. Number 4. Fill in the adverb PS, adjective is, and PPS as necessary. You may need to do other NPs inside PPS. 5. Next, do constituents inside the VP including object, NPS, and any APS and PPS inside them. Number 6. Again, the most important step is to go back and make sure that the tree obeys all the rules, as well as the golden rule of tree structures. 7. Some important considerations. A. Make sure that everything is attached. B. Make sure that every category has only one line immediately on top of it. It can have more than one under it, but only one immediately on top of it. Letter C. Don't cross lines. Letter D. Make sure all branches in the tree have a part of speech label. Letter E. Avoid triangles. Again, I strongly recommend that you start your tree drawing using the bottom-up method, but after some practice, you may find this latter method quicker.
Hey everyone! So far, my group mates already discussed about the bottom-up trees and the top-down method of drawing trees. And now I'm gonna show you how bracketed diagram works. So bracketed diagram is sometimes preferable to use, especially if there is a large part of sentence that are irrelevant to the discussion. So without further ado, I'm gonna show you how bracketed diagram works. But before that, I'm gonna introduce myself first. This is me, Judy Ann Rio Helon, and with that, let's go.
And now I am going to discuss about the bracketed diagrams. Bracketed diagrams is a way of representing the structure of an expression by writing square brackets to the left and right hand side of its components. The bracketed diagrams essentially follows the same principles for tree drawing. The only difference is that instead of drawing two lines connecting at the top, we will put square brackets on either sides of the constituents. A label is usually put on the left member of the bracket pair as a subscript. In bracketed diagram, there's also a steps to follow. First, mark the parts of speech, but this time with labeled brackets. Next, we have to apply the adjective praise rule or adverb praise rule, noun praise rule, and preposition praise rule. After that, we have to apply the verb praise rule and the tense praise rule. And lastly, go back and check that the structure can be generated by the rules. To see how bracketed diagram works, let's have an example. So let's take our sentence in tree drawing as an example. Our sentence is, the very small boy kissed the platypus. And now let's start the bracket notation. So the first step is to mark the part of speech with labeled brackets. So our sentence in here is, the very small boy kissed the platypus. We have here the for determiner, very for adverb since it's modifying an adjective word small. Next is boy for noun, kissed for verb, the for determiner, and platypus for noun. The next step is applying adverb praise rule, adjective praise rule, noun praise rule, and preposition praise rule. First, we're going to apply the adverb phrase rule. So in our sentence, the adverb phrase in here is very. In bracket notation, we're going to put a bracket in here and label it as adverb phrase. Next is adjective phrase rule. So in the sentence, very small is the adjective phrase. That is why we're going to place a bracket here and label it as an adjective phrase. And after that, put a bracket in here. After the adverb phrase and adjective phrase rule, we have the noun phrase rule. Based on the sentence, the noun phrase is the very small boy. So in bracket notation, place a bracket in here and labeled it as noun phrase or NP. Then, since our noun phrase is the very small boy, we're going to put a bracket right here. Other noun phrase that we have in this sentence is the platypus. Same as what we did, place a bracket here and labeled as noun phrase, then add a bracket right here. The next step is applying the verb phrase rule and the tense phrase rule. First, let's have the verb phrase rule. In the sentence, our verb phrase is kissed the platypus. So, place a bracket here with label verb phrase, then add a bracket right here. And after the verb phrase, we have the tense phrase rule. So in the bracketed diagram, place a bracket here and label as tense phrase or TP. Then add a bracket in here. And last but not the least step in bracketed diagram is going back and check the structure if it's generated by the rules. We should check it and make sure that the rules were applied correctly. Now let's see. We have here the adverb phrase and the adjective phrase rule. Next, we have the noun phrase rule. After that, we have the verb phrase rule. And lastly, we have the tense phrase rule. That would be the end of my topic. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Rainy Laos Jr. for our continue for the report of Miss Pahota for the assigned task, which is the modifications and ambiguity. For now, I'm going to discuss what is ambiguity. Ambiguity is a statement or sentence which could have more than possible interpretation. It is up to the listener or reader to determine what the true interpretations could be. There are some statements which may be ambiguous when you said alone but additional information. The ambiguity could be removed. When you use a literacy device, ambiguity can the reader opportunity think more deeply about the text that they are reading. A writer will often use ambiguity to give additional layers to their work, as well as to giving the reader some freedom by allowing them to make their own interpretations of what is happening. So there are some examples in ambiguity in a conversation. So first sentence is, you should bring a beer or wine and pudding. So this sentence could be taken in a few ways. Should he bring one of the drinks and pudding? Just beer or wine and pudding. And second sentence is, John isn't coming to the movies, so tell Mark we'll see him on a Sunday. So this statement uses ambiguity because the word him may be referring to either John or Mark. And last sentences, they also heard that, could sentence mean that they also the girl duck, or could it mean that they also the girl duck down?
Good day, everyone. I am Eljaylene A. Pahota, and this is the continuation of the report of Renel Laos, the modification and ambiguity. This sentence has more than one meaning, but for the time being, consider only the easiest reading for it. The sentence is, the man killed the king with a knife. The man used a knife to kill the king is called a paraphrase, which is the technical term for another way of saying the same thing. Remember the principle of modification. Modification is a syntactic construction in which one grammatical element, for example, a noun, is accompanied or modified by another, for example, an adjective. The first grammatical element is called the head or head word. The accompanying element is called a modifier. So the next is, in the sentence, the man killed the king with the knife. The prepositional phrase is with the knife that modifies killed. So the structure will look like this. With the knife describes how the man killed the king, which modifies the verb killed. So it is attached under the verb phrase. Now consider the other meaning in the sentence. The man killed the king with the knife. The other meaning could be, the king with the knife was killed by the man. The meaning in the sentence, the king with the knife was killed by the man, has the prepositional phrase with the knife, modifying king, and thus attached to the noun phrase. These examples highlight an important feature of syntactic trees. Trees allows us to distinguish between ambiguous readings of the same surface sentence. That's all. Thank you.
Iba't ibang uri ng estudyante. Estudyanteng trigger. Good morning, Julia. Napasa mo na yung assignment sa math? Tsaka yung activity sa English kahapon, yung about syntax. Yung ba nakikita nag-lip-tint ako? Wala akong assignment sa math. Dahil ko sa math. Wala, bobo nga talaga siya sa math. Lagi siyang sila. Julia, wala ka daw record sa math kahapon. Di ka nagpasa, no? Hala, Julia, yung hala, galit na. Pinaglilis pa naman yung sama ng loob. Wala akong pinasa. Wala lahat.
A few moments later.
Paano kaya to? Hindi ko pa rin natatapos yung significance of the study. Pwede tulungan mo ko? Hindi mo pa rin tapos yun? Tagal na yun na. Sige, ako na dyan. Salamat, Be. Julia, yung research design natin, di ko pa rin natapos. Di ko kasi magets kung paano. Paano ba to? Di mo pa rin yan tapos? Hala, mga dumbbell. Nasa yun sa'yo ah. Ilang kape na naman kaya lalaklakin. Sige, ako na. Ako na magdadagdag dyan mamaya. Ako na magtatapos yan tao. Kasi kulang pa yung ginagawa ko ngayon. Thank you talaga, pasensya na. Yung RRL natin, di ko pa rin natapos. 5 pages pa lang to. 10 pages kailangan. 10 pages lang, di ba? Hindi mo pa rin natapos? Sorry talaga. Sige, ako na magdadagdag dyan. 5 pages na lang, di ba? Oo. Sige. Ako na dyan. Salamat. Maybelline, yes, yung draft natin, nagawa mo na ba? Napaprint mo na ba? I-check mo mamaya ah. Yun nga, hindi ko pa napaprint kasi nga walang pera, hindi sila nag-aambag. Excuse me, Julia. Yung pala natin research. Sige na, ako na dyan. Ako na lahat. Hindi niyo ba alam yung stress ko? Hindi ko yung pagod ko. Parang ginagawang joke nyo lang to. RRL nyo, hindi niyo pinaprint, kinapapis nyo lang.
A few moments later.
Julia, may sasabihin kasi ako sa'yo. Pwede bang Ano na naman? Hala, high blood na naman siya. Pwede na lang ako sa research natin. Hindi ko kasi gets yung 5. Bakit? Ay, babayaran ng pera yung pagod ko? Yung stress ko? Ha? Nade-depress na ako kagawa ng research natin ha? Tapos babayaran mo lang ako? Hindi mo alam yung part mo? Yung intellectual damage, yung emotional damage, spiritual damage, everything. Oo, yung dami na babayaran mo lang ng pera. Ang galing niya, hindi siya nagpapabayad. Pero sige na nga, akin na. Alam mo kung pa ayaw. Good day everyone. So our topic for today is about constituency test. So in here, we will tackle about constituents. In Unit 1, we know that we held linguistics in general and syntax specifically. So to the light of the scientific method, that is, if we make a hypothesis about something, we must be able to test that hypothesis. In this chapter, we have proposed that the hypothesis that sentences are composed of higher level groupings called constituents. Constituents are represented in three structures and are generated by rules. If the hypothesis of constituency is correct, we should be able to test it in general, as well as test the specific instances of the rules. In other words, in English grammar, a constituent is a linguistic part of a larger sentence, phrase, or clause. For instance, all the words and phrases that make up a sentence are said to be constituents of that sentence. A constituent can be a morpheme, word, phrase, or clause. In order to figure out what kinds of tests we need, it is helpful to reconsider the specifics of the hypothesis. The definition of constituents states that they are groups of words that function as a unit. If this is the case, then we should find instances where groups of words behave as a single units. And these instances can serve as tests for the hypothesis. In other words, they are tests for constituency. These are a lot of constituency tests listed in the syntactic literature. We are going to look at only 4 here, which is the replacement or substitution, the standalone, movement, and the coordination. Also, the importance of consistency test is it proves the correctness of the structure of a sentence. Also, its analysis can be used to identify the structure of the given sentence, discover its deep meaning, and explore alternative ways of expressing the meaning. So the first consistency test we have here is the replacement test or substitution. The smallest constituent is a single word. So it follows that if you can replace a group of words with a single word, then we know that group forms a constituent. Consider the italicized NP in number 69. It can be replaced with a single word. In this case, is a pronoun. So we have here the first sentence, A. The man from New York flew only ultralight planes. And letter B, which is the substitution, he flew only ultralight planes. In this, can we replace a group of words into something else? In here, if you ask whether the word man and words from New York form a constituent or function as one unit, then you want to see if you can replace the word man and words from New York with one word and still retain a grammatical sentence well. You can see it gets something like a person, which is the noun man. The from New York flew only ultralight planes sound like a bad sentence, so the group of words the man from New York can be replaced by pronoun he. On the original sentence, the man from New York flew only ultralight planes was now replaced as he flew only ultralight planes. When we replace a string of words with a single word, how do we know that we are not just leaving off the optional items? Well, to avoid this problem, we have to keep the meaning as closely related to the original as possible. And from this, we can't deny that the words the man from New York flew only ultralight planes and words he flew only ultralight planes is closely related. Take note that there is one important caveat to the test of replacement. There are many cases in our rules of optional items. Those things marked in parentheses like the AP and NP. AP stands for adjective praise while NP stands for noun praise. A noun praise is a praise that acts as a noun, whereas an adjective praise is a praise that acts as an adjective. Thus, an adjective praise modifies a noun, while a noun praise functions as an object, subject, or complement in a sentence.
Second is standalone test, or also called the sentence fragment test. If the words can stand alone in response to a question, then they probably constitute a constituent. Consider the sentences in number 70A and repeated in 70B. We are going to test for the constituency of the italicized phrases. So we have here the number 70, the example sentences. A. Paul ate at a really fancy restaurant. B. Paul ate at a really fancy restaurant. At the sentence letter A is emphasizing the ate at a really, which means that the restaurant Paul went out yesterday was really fancy, while the letter B, italicized, was ate at. It just simply emphasizing that Paul ate yesterday without giving recognition that the restaurant he ate at was a fancy one. So these sentences can stand alone because both of it can respond to the question, what did Paul do yesterday afternoon? And answer, Paul ate at a really fancy restaurant, but not Paul ate at a really fancy restaurant. Next constituency test will be discussed by Mr. Sombilon.
Good day everyone, my name is Yuki and I will discuss the movement test. If you can move a group of words around in the sentence, then they are a constituent because you can move them as a unit. If we can move them together and still retain a grammatical sentence, then those words do form a constituent. If not, then they do not so. The basic idea behind the movement is that if words can move together as a unit, they form a constituent. There are several different types of movement tests. We will discuss 3 in this class: clifting, proposing, and passive. Now, let's start with clifting. It involves putting the stream of words between it was or is and a that at the beginning of the sentence. For example, the man bought a new phone at the store. We want to find out if at the store is a constituent. I would say something like, it was at the store that the man bought a new phone. And that is a perfectly good sentence. So, at the store forms a constituent. I'll say, I took new phone at. And try to see if that was a constituent. What do we get is, it was a new phone at that the man bought at the store. And that is a horrible sentence. So, a new phone at, that's not a constituent. But take a new phone and try that, you get, it was a new phone that the man bought at the store. And that is perfect. How about a new phone at the store? Put it in between of it was and a that and complete the sentence. It was a new phone at the store that the man bought. That is also a great sentence. Now, from our previous test of replacement, we already know that the verb plus whatever follows forms a constituent in the sentence. And the second part would be the subject. Try to put that next to the word that and see what happens. It was bought a new phone at the store that the man. That sounds so wrong. That does not mean that bought a new phone at the store is not a constituent. This is why we need to use more than one test before you decide that is not or is the constituent. The next one is proposing, also called pseudo-clefting. Involves putting a stream of words before is or are what, or is or are who at the front of the sentence. For example, I like half-pound steaks. Proposing would be taking a constituent, half-pound steaks, and proposing it to the beginning of the sentence. So you would say, half-pound steaks is what I like. If works, then it's a constituent. The next one is passive. It involves putting the subject in by phrase after the word by and changing the verb form. For example, kissed to was kissed. For example, Jan kissed the girl. We were to ask whether the girl is a constituent. We try to apply one movement test, which is the passive. Now, in the passive, you take whatever is an object. Would give us, girl, Jan was kissed by the. This is not right. How about taking the kiss and the? We would get, kissed the Jan was girl. And again, this is very bad too. But notice what happened when we tried to test that the girl is a constituent or not. We get, the girl was kissed by John, and that is a perfect sentence. So we know that the girl forms a constituent. It functions as one unit, therefore it can move as one unit. We have the test of coordination, also called conjunction. Coordinate structure are constituent linked by a conjunction like and or only constituent of the same syntactic category can be conjoined. So basically, if I can group things, it can do things together, then they're constituent of the same type. Here's an example. Things that are alike. So John that the man sitting next to Mary, even though it contains 6 words, now here I am is a noun phrase together John just like John. One hand, and the man sitting next to Mary is on the other hand. Since I'm able to connect these two, that means each is a constituent. And if they are both constituent of the same type, so this is a noun phrase. And the man sitting next to Mary, also a noun phrase. This is the example of PSRs for conjunction. In order to draw trees with conjunction in them, we need 2 more rules. These rules are slightly different than the ones we have looked up to now. These rules are not category specific, instead they use a variable x. This x can stand for n or v or a or p, etc. Just like in algebra. It is a variable that can stand for different categories. We need 2 rules, one to conjoin phrases, the Flintstones, and the Rubbles, and one to conjoin words, the dancer and singer. When constituency tests fail, unfortunately, sometimes it is the case that constituency tests give false results, which one of the reasons we haven't spent much time on them in this text. Consider the case of the subject of a sentence and its verb. These do not form a constituent. However, under circumstances, you can conjoin a subject and verb to the exclusion of the object. Here's the example. Bruce loved and Kelly hated phonology class. Sentence number 2 seems to indicate that the verb and subject form a constituent, which they don't according to the 3 and example number 1. As you will see in later chapters, it turns out that things can move around in sentence or be deleted. This means that sometimes the constituency is obscured by other factors. For this reason, to be sure that a test is working correctly, you have to apply more than one test to a given structure. always perform at least 2 different tests to check constituency, as one alone may give you a false result. And that will be all. Thank you.
Okay, class, I guess that's all for today, and I guess Villarde is absent, right? Villarde present po, ma'am. Oh, Miss Villarde, you're late again. Good day, everyone. My name is Fergus Villarde, and I'm going to talk about the summary and conclusion about this topic. Now, we've done a lot in this unit. We looked at the idea that sentences are hierarchically organized into constituent structures. We also represented these constituent structures in trees and bracket diagrams. We also developed a set of rules to generate those structures. And finally, we looked at the constituency test that can be used to test the structures. And always remember, part of speech are the labeling system for constituent structures. We showed that part of speech can be determined by the meaning alone. So take a note for that. And that's all for today. Thank you.